for Monday, September 9th. If you could please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If the clerk could call the roll.
Anderson,
Here.
Baldwin.
Here.
Dean,
Here.
Gardner. Muncy,
Here.
Stanton,
Here.
White,
Here.
give a quorum.
And I did have Councilmember Gardner did say he would be a few moments late. If anyone could make a motion to prove his absence at the beginning of the meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve Councilmember Gardner's absence at the beginning of this evening's meeting.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say yes.
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 Okay. Now on to mayor's comments. I just want to talk about the Mount Baldhead Challenge. It was such a fantastic race again this year. I feel like it gets better and better and better every single year. Big, congratulations to the Rotary. All of the proceeds go to the Boys and Girls Club, and it's such a big deal that 600 plus runners are a part of it. Just want to say thank you to our DPW staff, police and fire for making it work, all of the volunteers, obviously all of Rotary that made it happen and all of the organization that went behind it. And it's a big boost to our local businesses. It's the weekend after Labor Day, and it's really nice to have such a big event to draw people to come to town the weekend after Labor Day. So it was really fantastic. And I look forward to the Saugatuck Film Festival that's coming up as well. So we have a couple of things that just keeps this going in these shoulder seasons, as we like to call it at the CVB. So it's really fantastic to keep everyone coming to town and having fun things to do. So under the city manager's comments.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a couple highlights from my report. We have a lot of projects and things in the work and things that we're working on. So Maple Street, as you recall, we started some of the engineering work to replace the water main and the road along with it. And then we're also evaluating some kind of non-motorized improvements as well, whether it be widened shoulders or sidewalks or something similar. So as part of that process, we really want to engage the folks in the community, especially those that live along Maple Street, to kind of get their feedback before we kind of dive in further into the design process. So we want to talk with them on the front end. So there's a open house scheduled for September 17th. A couple different options. First is from 3 to 5:30. The second is from 7 to 8:30. That's here at City Hall. So it's very much open house style. You don't have to come and sit through any sort of presentation or be here during that entire time. It's very much come in. Our engineers will have some boards set up to kind of show the area, and it's very much conversational to have a discussion and hear what folks have to say and their feedback and what they're looking for along Maple Street. The second project that you're going to start noticing a lot, especially starting this week, is our water service material verification. So as you likely recall, this is grant funded requirement of the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Eagle, where we have to verify a number of water service lines in the city to see if they contain lead. So a number of properties have been identified through a randomization process. And so that contractor is going to literally start poking holes in different parts of the city, whether it be the road or city right of way, potentially sidewalks. And then there's also a component where they have to view the material inside of the homes. So if you're, if it's something that where they have to see the material inside of your home, they'll place a door hanger on your door. You'll see them working outside of certain properties, and then they'll be, backfilling these holes and then restoring them to an original condition as well. So they will be filled in, they will be taken care of, but you will start to see a lot of this work occurring throughout the city. They're going to kind of start on the outskirts of town and then kind of move their way towards downtown as we kind of hopefully get into, I shouldn't say hopefully, but into a portion of the season that is maybe less busy than it is now.
Right.
So,
Right.
The other piece I just kind of wanted to highlight was a piece from Scott Herbert's report. Oval Beach was quite busy this summer. We had our first time Oval Beach manager, Noah, Armandi that was out there for the summer and did a great job, and really appreciated him and his team's work. It's a large operation out there. So Noah's still busy wrapping up a number of things. We're not charging to enter Oval Beach anymore, but wanted to recognize him as Scott did as well. That's all I have there.
Mayor?
Yeah.
Just a quick follow-up on that. When do you think we'll see a revenue total for this season? It's always interesting to see how we do at the beach. I might be keen to see that and how it compares to maybe the previous years. No
yeah.
rush, but I just, if it would be useful to see how we did with the change to the parking fee.
Certainly, yeah. I remember a similar update last year, so we'll see if we can get that on a future workshop for you.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a urgent, but just if staff think about it, I'd be curious.
Good. Anything else?
Yeah, I want to thank you for the Maple Street Open House initiative. I think that's a great idea. Folks just want to be heard.
Yep.
And we know that from Maple Street, folks. And I think this is a great thing to open up as we move forward to replacing that road. That was a great thing. I was happy to see that.
Thank you.
Okay, any agenda changes, additions or deletions to the agenda today? Okay, any guest speakers today? None. All right, it's time for public comment on agenda items only. If anybody in the audience wishes to speak, feel free to come to the podium. Okay, we'll move online. Anyone with their hand raised online? Okay, all right, we will move on then to the consent agenda. It is on page 3, or at least it starts on page 3. If anybody would like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? There's quite a few.
For all the upcoming events.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've read through all of it. I didn't have any questions.
Great, great. Some of this is our events that we've seen before in the past.
Mhm.
And it all looks like,
And they
This
all
is-
have
I'm
their own
excited
safety
about the-
meetings and such,
yeah, the family and pet Halloween parade. So we have that back as far as having something for the young kids. And I know some of the locals enjoyed that, over the years, and it's nice to have it back in Saugatuck.
And a shout out to the CVB and to April Gundy who have taken on these events.
Yeah.
I know I've done them in the past,
Yeah.
but so glad to see them continue.
Absolutely.
And I was trusted. I mean, it's not that we're just, blazing through this. These are all still subject to planning and safety meetings. So they get scrutiny through that, and I trust on that process. So I'm good with it.
Great.
But it looks fairly,
Routine.
well, yeah, I mean, we're using chips again for the holiday lighting. They do a good job. I think we all would agree. So, yeah.
These are all familiar.
It all looks very familiar from the previous.
And
year.
excited to have Luke officially designated as our planning and zoning director. So nothing in there
Indeed.
gives me any heartburn.
Yeah.
So it's great.
All right. So this is a roll call vote.
Anderson,
Yes.
Baldwin.
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Muncy,
Yes.
Stanton,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right, we'll move on to staff reports, boards, commissions, and committees. City managers report.
Yeah, and nothing particular to add, Madam Mayor, other than what I touched on at the beginning of the meeting, but if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer any.
Okay, anyone have any questions? All right, we'll move on to the treasurer's report. Anything to highlight? Okay, the clerk? Jamie, do you have anything you would like to highlight?
I don't.
All right, planning and zoning, anything to highlight there?
Just that report that you all appreciated before, the kind of the casework report is returned or has returned, and Luke plans on keeping that up as he goes. So,
Very good.
Ryan, do you think it's possible, once the new short-term rental ordinances are official, to kind of get a snapshot of the STR kind of in all of the districts, and then maybe once every 4 months, 6 months or whatever, just get periodic updates so we can just kind of keep an eye on that? Is that a reasonable?
Sure, we could probably do something like quarterly or
Yeah, that would be
quarterly snapshot or something
great,
like
because
that.
it'd be interesting to see
I like that too.
how the commercial district might get some more, and just, I think it'd just be helpful.
I think it's a good idea to keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it's good. That would be good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's great to have the report back. It's sort of like the police blotter. I just love, I love to read it. So.
Kind of is.
That's great. All right, then we'll move on to DPW. I don't think Scott had anything to highlight. Sheriff's Department.
They have their monthly stats in your packets.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And then John Moxie with the engineers report. Anything to highlight there?
No, just to highlight, the Mount Bald Head work that you previously approved engineering for is, it's moving along. Where the bathroom replacement project is moving the fastest, but there's still a permitting process to go through with Eagle, and depending on how that goes. And it doesn't look like we're going to hit the fall replacement that we were hoping for, but I'm still hopeful we're going to have this done in the spring. And then the upper platform, again, still working through the engineering on that. And again, we'll have to go through a permitting process. That one might be a little bit more involved. So it might take a little longer to kind of start that construction, but those projects are well in the works.
Okay, great. All right, we'll move on to boards, commissions, and committees. The Fire District Administration Board, Dan.
And Fox, Council Representative of the Fire District Board. This will be brief. Our next meeting is a week from today, 4 o'clock at the fire department. You're all welcome, as is everyone else, anytime. But I thought I'd share, because I just got this either yesterday or today, I can't remember, the a month end for August stats. So I'll just briefly go through the top line on those. The one that we focus on fairly heavily is the total number of calls, which continues to run, forgive me, bad pun, very hot at 22% growth year to year. Response times, we also watch closely. That has dropped. I think the last time was up here, I don't have it in front of me, it was either at 7 minutes or just above 7. It's 6:21 now. So, and that reflects the first full month of the roundabout being completed and the quicker response as a result. And again, we'll see what happens on the other side of the river. Hopefully not too many calls over there. 52 calls for the month that are what they call emergent calls. So lights and sirens, against 40 last year, again, reflecting the kind of growth. I don't know if it's interesting or not that Saturday is the #1 day of the week for calls, followed, which to me that part makes sense because you figure there are more people in town on Saturday, no matter what, tourists, even off season. But the second most, not that far behind, most frequent call day is Tuesday. So I don't know I can't figure out what that's about. Overlapping calls, which we've discussed before, are those calls where the fire district has to respond to 2 calls, which puts a real stress on the resources. Those are up 53 for the month against 36 a year ago. So again, the same kind of increase. Types of calls, the #1 call remains, unsurprisingly, EMS calls, which are 58% of the calls. Of that 58, which translates to 74. I'm thinking these numbers may not be accurate. The #1 characterization of the call is for falls. I think my percent number, I think, is wrong, but that continues the trend that's been there forever. That's the #1 request. Motor vehicle accidents, 49 for the month, up from 41 a year ago. And 350 calls, Saugatuck City, 350 calls in all. Saugatuck City, 164, Douglas 235. I'm sorry, in the township, 350 calls. So follow those numbers. And I don't know if you may have seen it in the newspaper, there's a wonderful letter from a lady in Douglas about emergency response for a situation she had with a scary situation. Husband fell off a scaffold, at my age, I know that kind of fall. And it's not, the answer is don't get on the scaffold, but crack his head or whatever. And she didn't even know who to thank. She didn't know who the guys were. And apparently one of the guys, I don't know who this was, one of our guys, I think, came back the next day to say, how's he doing and whatever. That's small town Saugatuck stuff. So kind of cool. Anyway, if you have any questions or whatever, feel
Any
free.
questions for Dan? All right, Dan, thank you so
Dan.
much.
Thanks, Dan.
All right, on to the interurban board. Gregory?
Yeah, you know, I spoke at our last meeting about our updates from our previous meeting. Our next meeting is going to be I'm sorry, September 18th. Our last meeting, I told you that we got the go-ahead to build our building out with our capital grant process. And so we'll be moving forward with building the building out. And then also there were applications out for a new interurban board member, but we were happy to hear that Kathy Johnson will be reapplying again to serve another term if we vote for her. So,
Good.
but things are going great. Becky is doing a wonderful job. I spoke with her earlier today. We talked to each other throughout the week, but I think she's doing a great job filling the position, the big shoes that Phyllis did. So it's been, I want to say 3 or 4 months now. But a great report from the drivers. I get drivers that talk to me about how they're really, really enjoy working with her. So I think she was the perfect fit for interurban.
Good. Great. Any questions for Gregory? Okay. Cal Lake Sewer and Water Authority. I don't know that anyone is here. Nope. Okay. Cal Lake Harbor Authority.
Our next meeting is a week from Tuesday.
Okay. Zoning Board of Appeals. Historic District Commission, Russ.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Apologize for being late to tonight's meeting. The Historic District Commission met last Thursday, September 5th at 6 p.m. We had 2 items of business. One was 413 Lake Street. That is the house that's at the very base of Allegan Hill on Lake Street. It's a blue house, and the owner was she actually was online at the meeting. They had requested replacement of new rear windows in the door, and we had some discussion about that. It was a good conversation. It was interesting to me because she had a picture of the water facing side of the building, and I said, as many years as I've been here, I've never seen that side of that house. So that's kind of the experience on the commission that I get, is to kind of see things that I don't normally see as I make my way around town. That application was approved. The other discussion was around an agenda item that we have this evening is the Village Square Park to install an interpretive history sign. The commission is in full support of the idea. The only feedback that came from the commission, and I think will be probably discussed this evening, is the placement. There were some concerns that it was being placed at a spot that would impede pedestrian traffic or perhaps cause a congestion. It's a very congested area there. So there was some feedback given to the city manager at the meeting that should be discussed. For the area is fine, but just maybe move it away so it's less impactful to pedestrian traffic. And then we had 4 administrative approvals and updates that were discussed, and that was our business.
All right. Any questions for us? All right. We'll move on to Planning Commission.
We meet a week from Thursday.
Okay. Parks and Public Works Committee.
Nothing to report.
All right. Tri-Community Non-Motorized Trail, Scott.
We're going to schedule a meeting among the principals in the near future. We're just trying to get everybody's calendars to match up, but project's on track, still planning for construction start date, spring of 2025.
Okay. Let's see. Any questions for Scott? All right, we'll move on. No request for payment, approval of accounts payable. Do I have a motion to approve accounts payable?
Motion to approve accounts payable in the amount of $68,748.78.
Do I have a second?
Second.
And any discussion or questions? All right, it is a roll call vote.
Anderson,
Yes.
Baldwin,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gardner,
Yes.
Muncy,
Yes.
Stanton,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right, no introduction of ordinances, no unfinished business, so we'll move on to new business. Item 15A, historic markers at Village Square Park and West Chain Ferry Dock. That's on page 74. Ryan.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. So for the last couple of years, the Saugatuck Douglas History Center has been working on bringing a number of historical markers to the tri-community. And I think from my perspective, at least, this program has had a huge success. I mean, everywhere I go and see them, there's folks reading them and engaging with them. And So hats off to them with the vision and bringing this project to fruition. So they're going into year 3 and Eric with the History Center is online today and approached the city wondering if they could install 2 more within at least the city. The first being at Village Square Park, an area that's near the public restrooms, and then adding another marker, but this time on the west dock, Chain Ferry dock. So as Mr. Gardner indicated, the Historic District Commission did review at their last meeting and did approve kind of conditioned upon the Department of Public Works, making a final decision on placement, and noted some concerns that if we're going to place it right on that corner, there could be some concerns there with pedestrian congestion. Parks and Public Works Committee did review this as well. And so I've circled back and talked with Eric about placement and he's flexible. This is a program where the History Center covers all of the costs as far as getting the materials and installing them with the concrete base. And then they also take care of all the messaging and the photos and that sort of thing. I know there were a couple questions from the Historic District Commissioners about content and what might be on these. So if it's all right, Madam Mayor, maybe I'll turn it over to Eric to kind of provide a little bit more detail. If that's okay.
Yeah. Hi, Eric. Welcome.
Hello, happy to be here. Can you all hear me okay?
We can.
Hi, Eric.
Oh, great, thanks. Yeah. Well, I'm delighted to be here. We have 10 different sites across Saugatuck and Douglas and 5 in Saugatuck where we've placed markers already, and all the feedback we've received has been really positive. So we have two marker locations, so 4 markers altogether, which you're familiar with already from the packet. As we've done now for the last the previous placements, I'm happy to work with DPW and make sure that the siting is really good. The locations indicated in the packets are sort of following some of what we've learned from the previous and some of the feedback from placing the other markers at Oval Beach and Wicks, Cook, Jones Park, and we can certainly adjust those locations with input from DPW and from council. There's sort of a balance of we want them to be visible in where people are standing around or walking around in the city. We also don't want to cause congestion or create distraction. So love to work on that. Let me just say, I'll just say just a couple of words about the content of the marker, since that was a question that came up in the committees. I'll start with the Village Square marker. The markers have 2 sides, as you probably have seen. So the history on location, history lives here content for the Village Square marker is we're talking about the history of Saugatuck itself and the history of the laying out of the town on a grid. And William Butler back in 1834 has the town site surveyed and lays out this village green, this village common in 1834 that will be kind of left open for public gathering and lots not sold. So the marker will tell the story of the platting of Saugatuck and the origin of names of the village itself, the different names that the village went through from Kalamazoo to Newark to finally Saugatuck. And then also the street names, many of the early early migrants that purchased lots within Saugatuck gave us the names of the streets we have today. Of course, Butler best known among them as the village founder, but then Griffith and other streets as well. Another side to the marker will we'll share photographs of some of the early activity and even 20th century history at Village Square. There was a gazebo located at Village Square in the 1870s and after. There was a Liberty pole that was placed there as a site of kind of political organizing. And there's baseball that was played on Village Square back after the Civil War as well. So we'll tell some of that history on this marker. I think it'll be really Really interesting story to a part of the city that people don't often, I think, know a lot about or think a lot about, but I think has a really fascinating history to it. And I'd be happy to talk about the ferry landing story if you want to toggle over to that. Yeah, so we have a really popular historical marker placed on the east side of the ferry landing. And there's a great story to tell here on the west side while people are waiting for the ferry to board or as they come off, telling the story in particular of Jay Myers. Jay Myers was a much beloved ferryman that can crank the ferry and rowed a boat in the winter months across the Kalamazoo River in the late 1800s and early 1900s. Jay Myers was as a young man, worked at the mills at Singapore and was actually part of the crew that dismantled the mills 150 years ago when Singapore closed, when Singapore was abandoned. And he was so popular, Jay Myers, that when he died in 1928, the city members of the community raised money and had the architect and painter Carl Herman and Frederick Fersman of Oxbow design the bench that you see there, this kind of Art Nouveau style classical bench, which is a monument to him. So there's a great story, I think, to tell about the chain ferry and about the connection to art and commemoration there at the site. And again, there's some space there to place this, and we can look at in more detail whatever other considerations there are at that site.
Anyone have any questions for Eric? Eric, thank you so much for joining us and filling us in. Does anybody have any questions?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
Motion to approve the historic marker installation at Village Square Park and West Chain Ferry Dock, contingent upon final location details being approved by staff.
I'll
Second.
second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Um,
Yes, sure.
First of all, I'd like to thank Eric and the Historical Center there for these wonderful plaques that I've seen the last few years. You've done a terrific job with it. And Sally Winters, I know, is behind the design plan. And these are just wonderful. And I welcome all of them. I think they're a great asset to the community. It's been no cost to us, and I think they're great. But I also had another question for the historical meeting that you had. How did you see this, the one by the bathroom? Was that the one that you thought was, how was that distracting to?
Well, just looking at the
I
image
saw
that was
the map.
provided, that if it was placed directly on the corner, there's a lot of people coming through there, kids from the park and people using the restrooms, and people tend to linger and look because there's 2 or 3 sides. And the concern is that if they were to stop on the sidewalk and look at this for, several minutes, there's
Oh.
pedestrians trying to come by either down Butler Street or coming down from Main Street down the sidewalk. So our thought was to just maybe move it up the hill just a
Oh,
little
maybe
bit.
just up a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
bit away from the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other concern, well, not concern, but the other thought that came up was that because these get a lot of traffic, is that the concern about the grass. And so that was something that was mentioned too, is that probably put some thought in maybe putting a pedestal or putting some kind of a walkway or something or around it. Because otherwise people can be on the grass the entire time as they go around and read it. That was the other thing that came up.
Yeah, Mayor, I mean, these, Eric's absolutely right. These are, and so's the manager, these things are so popular. Not a day passes when I'm down in one of these areas where I don't see a visitor or even a resident, educating themselves on Saugatuck's history. And the story of the ferryman is quite compelling. Maybe someday a local artist will take it upon themselves to make a likeness of the ferryman, and we could find a place to put that.
That'd be great.
Well, and I think it's important to note that, fully support this and that it is contingent upon final location details, so we don't need to belabor the point here.
All right. All right. If there's nothing further, then it is a voice vote. All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed? All right. Motion carries.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
Appreciate it. All right, we will move on then to Item 15B, the creation of a tri-community wildlife committee. This is on page 78. Okay. There we go.
Well, Mayor, we talked at your workshop meeting about forming a tri-community wildlife management committee and to predominantly look at some of the concerns that have been coming up as far as the urban deer population and concerns with vegetation being eaten. And we talked about Talmadge Woods and that there's a lack of understory there that's growing, which is concerning for the health of the forests going forward. And then we're hearing some different concerns with folks, not just on the west side of the river, but the east side of the river with deer walking down the middle of the street and down the sidewalks and having some behaviors that are abnormal for deer. And so the township, Douglas and me as the city manager of Saugatuck have discussed, approaching this issue collaboratively and that we can't tackle this issue in isolation. And so the idea was raised of having a tri-community committee to take a look at the issue and then ultimately report back recommendations. This would be a committee that doesn't have any ultimate authority to make any decisions for the community, but would come up with a comprehensive set of recommendations to bring back to each council and board to ultimately make some decisions on what should happen in that community. At your workshop, you discussed wanting a sunset date on the committee. I took that idea back to Douglas and the township, and both were agreeable to that. We had some discussion that it may take a little while to get this committee off the ground. We have a few other committee members that will need to be appointed, and that process will involve accepting applications and then each council and board approving those particular members before they would actually be able to have their first meeting. And then it may take several meetings before they have a set of recommendations. So my recommendation is to set a sunset date, initially at least of December 31st, 2025, knowing that you could choose to extend it if you chose to. And then at your last meeting, you discussed appointing Councilmember Dean to the committee.
Okay. All right. The sample motion is on page 79. If somebody could make a motion.
Yeah, make a motion to approve partnering with the city of the Village of Douglas and Saugatuck Township to create a tri-community wildlife management committee with a sunset date of December 31, 2025, unless an extension is approved, and to appoint Councilmember Dean to serve on the committee.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I'm in support of this motion and the concept. As I mentioned at the workshop, I am also supportive of having this have a sunset date on it. Ultimately, this will have to be something that the community of Saugatuck will have to decide what we want to do within our boundaries within, and the collaboration is great with the township and the village. Also too, notice in the commercial record, if you read the last commercial record, apparently there's a bow hunt at Heiser Farm that the Lake Town Township is using that as a solution. So there's a lot of examples of this being managed around us and it'll be interesting to see what ideas are forthcoming from this group.
All right. Anyone else?
And I'm wondering if, collaborating with the other, with Douglas and with the township, I think that might be an advantage to, even, when we do find a solution for pricing. When we do get a contract, I think that's great. I'm always about collaborating, and it really is something that affects all of our communities here. The one thing, we hear about how bad the deer are for us or how we're going to hit it, or, there's too many here and they're eating our vegetation. But really, I look at this as this is for the deer. Because when I drive around, what I've noticed with our deer population is that they're starving. They're hungry, we're overpopulated. A lot of them are older, they're skinny. It's just, I think it's really the solutions come down to it, doing what's safe for them too. Because it is becoming a problem, not just for us, but for the deer.
Anyone else?
Just a thank you to Councilmember Dean for serving.
Okay. It is a roll call vote.
Anderson,
Yes.
Baldwin,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gardner,
Yes.
Muncy,
Yes.
Stanton,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right. Moving on to item 15C, regular meeting date changes. It's on page 83. Ryan, if you want to just explain what we have in store here.
Yeah, so recently you approved updating our number of paid holidays for city staff, and that included adding Indigenous Peoples' Day and Veterans Day. Indigenous Peoples' Day is always on a Monday of each year, and then Veterans Day stays with the 11th each year. So this particular year, those two holidays will actually fall on days where City Hall would be closed. I'm asking that you consider changing those regular meeting dates to a date that works best for council.
Okay. So we, you and I had a chance to discuss this a little bit and, along with Mayor Pro Tem Baldwin. If anyone wants to make a motion as far as changing some of those dates,
Madam Mayor.
yeah,
Motion to reschedule the October 14th regular meeting to October 9th, 2024, and reschedule the November 11th regular meeting to November 12th, 2024.
okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
And if I can just explain myself. a little bit
Yeah.
on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, one of the things that, so we are not required to have 2 workshops a month, but we are required to have 2 meetings a month. So I just thought that maybe the October 9th, which is Wednesday, maybe that workshop, we could have the full meeting then that day. I think the November meeting, we need to have a regular meeting because that'll be after the election and that's when the new mayor gets appointed in that. So if there's a new mayor, whatever we do, but, I just thought it might be just efficient to say, like, if we don't have a huge thing coming up, that maybe we can, instead of just having a workshop and a meeting that week of October 14th, we can just have the workshop, have our meeting during that workshop session that's already carved out. That was my thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone oppose that or, think through that if that doesn't work? Yeah,
9th is the
October
Wednesday
9th
before,
and
correct?
November 12th.
So that would be, it would be at 4 o'clock on that 9th, like it would be our workshop and we would just, that would be our meeting and not a workshop.
And would it still be at 4 o'clock, you're saying?
I would suggest that.
I like that idea.
I know.
I'm just saying we've already got that carved out on our calendar, that time period, and then we just have a full meeting then, and we don't have 2 workshops that month, we have 1 workshop.
Okay.
That would be my suggestion.
I'm in,
And
I'm
if
in
we could get
favor
our
of it.
packet extra early that week, if you have time, that would be nice.
Okay. Any other discussion on that? All right, so this is also a roll call vote.
Anderson,
Yes.
Baldwin,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Gardner,
Yes.
Muncy,
Yes.
Stanton.
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, great. On to public comment on anything that's not particularly on the agenda. Anything you would like to go ahead and come on up to the podium. And we just need you to state your first and last name and where you live. And you have 3 minutes.
Patricia Smith, 995 Lake Street, Unit 5. I just have a question. The wonderful new park or revamped park on Butler Street. But when us grandmas take our kids there, there's no bench to sit on. I would like to see if we could have a couple benches put on that park because old people don't like to stand.
Thank you very much.
Can we address that?
Yeah.
Ryan,
It's
if you
being
wouldn't
addressed.
mind
Sure.
taking the opportunity just to address it.
Yeah, so the benches and their exact placement weren't yet known when we were doing the playground install, so that part hasn't been approved by the Historic District Commission yet, but we're intending on that being before the Historic District Commission, their first meeting in October, and then Mr. Herbert has concrete work scheduled in October where we'll get the bases installed and get those installed for everyone, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Go ahead, Joe.
Joe Leonardi, 712 Allegan. Give or take a few days, about 5 months ago, I was followed out of a city council meeting by a sitting member of the council who guaranteed me that an ethics proposal was going to be on the agenda. Okay, that's 5 months. Did that person forget about it? Or was she pressured by people on the council that they didn't need an ethics improvement? So I'm thinking about this and I say, Helen, you come out of the private sector. How many companies did you work for that didn't have an ethics policy? Lauren, you came out of media. How many companies did you work for that didn't have an ethics policy? We have an attorney there. I would gamble to say that his law firm has an ethics policy. So I would love to, and I'd be happy to hear from you if you could tell anybody why we shouldn't have an ethics policy. You don't have an ethic. In fact, anybody who sits on this board, on this council, should actually be held to a higher standard than most people. Because you've got the public interest in heart. You don't have a public ethics, a strong ethics policy. You're gonna have people sitting on this council here in orange jumpsuits, and no one's gonna care a thing about it. If you'd had a strong ethics policy, maybe we wouldn't be paying 6 figures to the former town manager, and it would have been easier to get rid of him. But we didn't do that. So I would be anxious to hear from anybody why you feel we should not have a strong ethics policy. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Anyone else in the audience? All right, anyone online? Anyone online have your hand raised? Okay. I don't see anyone. All right, then we will move on. Any correspondence? We are on to council comments. We can start with Logan.
Wanted to I went to the bathroom. And I saw that there were, cool story, right? Saw the signs on the bathroom were gender neutral now, and that's really neat. It was wild. I went into the former women's bathroom because the other one was full, and a woman came out of the other one, and it was totally fine. Everybody had a good time. It was just really efficient, so that's nice.
Great.
Really like that. And also there's this thing about the Douglas Halloween Parade. I'm sure you guys have seen. They're having a little bit of trouble. It seems like getting that organized this year. The city of Douglas has some other priorities that I'm guessing for their funds right now. So I don't have a solution to that. But just wanted to see if there's kind of raise that up for us to noodle on and pay attention to. That's an amazing event. I don't know if you've ever been to that. I went for the first time last year. I was absolutely blown away by the scale and also like the positivity of that event. I was thinking it would be really scary, and of course it was, but in a good way. People were so friendly there, and it would be a real shame to lose something like that. So I don't know in what capacity Sagatuck can help out, but I think we should try to do what we can if need be. And then speaking of another event, again, the Sagatuck Film Fest is this weekend. And can't believe the quality of films that we're about to present. It's absolutely going to be a record year. And we're also doing an advanced screening of what I would say is, you remember Napoleon Dynamite? John Heder, he's in it. And so it's like a big time kind of movie. So we're doing a pre-release screening for that at the end too, which is kind of a first for us at the fest. So we're starting to get some traction in the movie scene, which is fun. So coming out if you're into that sort of thing. We're having a bunch of fun down there on Saturday at the Women's Club.
Great. Thanks, Logan. Gregory.
Don't forget Friday night, community nights, the first one done by the high school, the Sagatuck Public Schools. It's going to be in the softball field right before our first home game this Friday. They're going to do it between 4 and 6:30, and you'll be able to dunk Dr. Travis in the dunk tank and other local celebrities, I think. And there'll be face painting, balloons. Somebody told me there'll be bubbles. And it's a great community, family fun event, and I invite everybody to go to that. Also wanted to remind you, like I do every year, it's that time of year where we'll be decorating downtown for fall. And I'll be getting a hold of our farmer, Mr. Headley, who will be dropping off the hay bales. I'll get in contact with Scott so that they drop those off. And we'll be putting pumpkins and hay bales in town in the same spots that we have for years. So just wanted to remind everybody of that.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Scott.
Thanks, Mayor. Just to answer the constituent comment, last Wednesday on September 4th, in our meeting packet on page 25, you will find the City of Saugatuck's resolution number 081110-C, which is our ethics policy. So the city does have an ethics policy. Regarding the Mount Baldhead Challenge, compliments to city staff and to the athletes and all the volunteers and Rotary in particular for putting on a great event on a Sunday. It was a great race. Thank you.
Saturday.
Yes, go ahead.
I'll just pick up on that. Yeah, it was a wonderful turnout. We had over 600 runners. We had to cap it. 150 volunteers. Super grateful for that. The community always shows up in force for this. And every year we find ways that we need to improve upon it, and certainly we can always do better. But it was a huge success. Very proud of it, and really proud of the Rotary Club for stepping up and taking care of this kids program, the Boys and Girls Club, and very proud of that. Wanted to piggyback also on Member Dean's comment to the constituent. Do you have an ethics policy? It was looked at as recently as July 23rd, 2024. And we also agreed that if it needs to be looked at again by our city attorney, happy to do that. That was unanimous. Not really seeing what that is, but I do want to push back anytime I see misinformation, especially when I see that it appears to be willful, given that we just discussed this 5 days ago. So happy to take that up anytime. Thank you.
Russ?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, thank you. Again, I apologize for arriving late. I do want to talk about the ethics policy and again, the workshop meeting last week. I did not come prepared for that discussion. There were some comments and some aggressive comments made to me that led me to believe that there's something not right here regarding this. So I'm a better prepared. I'm gonna make some comments now about what I should have made at the workshop committee last Wednesday. Reasons to update our ethics policy. This is to ensure integrity, compliance, and accountability in a changing world. In today's dynamic and rapidly evolving business environment, it is imperative to regularly revisit and update our ethics policy. The integrity of our city and the trust we cultivate with our stakeholders, employees, constituents, partners, and the community at large hinge on our adherence to the highest ethical standards. I'm going to read an outline of the key reasons for updating our ethics policy to reflect current realities and ensure robust and effective governance. Adapting to regulatory changes. Compliance with new laws and regulations. One of the foremost reasons for updating our ethics policy is to ensure compliance with new and evolving laws and regulations. Governments around the world continuously update legislation to address issues such as data protection, anti-corruption, et cetera. By staying abreast of these changes and incorporating them into our ethics policy, we can avoid legal pitfalls and maintain our reputation as a law-abiding municipality. Industry standards and best practices. In addition to governmental regulations, industry standards and best practices are also in constant flux. To remain a leader in the government sector, we must align our ethics policy with these standards. This not only helps in maintaining our competitive edge, but also reinforces our commitment to ethical excellence. Addressing new ethical dilemmas. Technological advancements. The advent of new technology brings with it a host of ethical dilemmas that were previously uncharted. Issues such as artificial intelligence, big data analytics, and cybersecurity present both opportunities and challenges. Our ethics policy must evolve to address the responsible use of these technologies, ensuring that we harness their potential without compromising our ethical standards. Social responsibility and sustainability. There's a growing expectation for municipalities to be socially responsible and environmentally sustainable. Our ethics policy should reflect our commitment to these values by including guidelines on sustainability practices, corporate social responsibility initiatives, and community engagement. This not only enhances Sagatuck's image, but also attracts a socially conscious customer base and workforce. Customer base being our citizens and also being our constituents. Enhancing organizational culture. I believe this is probably the most important of these aspects, in my opinion. Fostering a culture of integrity. An updated ethics policy serves as the foundation for fostering a culture of integrity within the organization, the city of Sagatuck. Clear guidelines and expectations empower employees to make ethical decisions and encourage transparency and accountability at all levels. A strong ethical culture mitigates the risk of misconduct and promotes a positive work environment where trust and respect are paramount. Employee engagement and retention. Employees are more likely to stay with an organization that aligns with their personal values and ethical beliefs. By updating our ethics policy, we demonstrate our commitment to ethical conduct, which in turn fosters employee loyalty and engagement. This not only reduces turnover costs, but also enhances productivity and morale. Strengthening stakeholder trust, building constituent and citizen confidence. Constituents today are more informed and concerned about the ethical practices of local governments. An up-to-date ethics policy reassures constituents and citizens that we are committed to conducting business responsibly. This builds confidence and loyalty in their government. Mitigating risks and protecting reputation. Preventing ethical breaches. Ethical breaches can lead to severe consequences, including legal penalties, financial losses, and reputational damage. By proactively updating our ethics policy, we can identify and address potential ethical issues before they escalate. This risk management approach safeguards our organizational integrity and long-term success. Crisis management. In the event of a crisis, a well-defined and current ethics policy provides a framework for response. It ensures that our actions during crises are guided by ethical principles, helping to maintain stakeholder trust even in challenging times. This preparedness can be the difference between quick recovery and prolonged damage to our reputation. In conclusion, updating our ethics policy is not just a procedural necessity, but a strategic imperative. It allows us to navigate the complex landscape of modern business with integrity, build a resilient organizational culture, and strengthen our relationship with all stakeholders. By committing to regular updates of our ethics policy, we affirm our dedication to ethical excellence and ensure our continued success and relevance in an ever-changing world. I again make a recommendation to this council to form a study committee, which is part of the MML approach to actually updating a community's ethics policy. We do have an ethics policy in place. It has not been updated since 2008. I believe that's the correct date, 2008. And also in response to some concerns that were brought up at the meeting last week, I was a little reluctant to bring up some situations I've run into as I've been on council. There's three things, though, that are kind of driving my thoughts here. One is at one point we had a now former council member who had been convicted of an election crime sitting at this table. There was no accountability and there was no effort made to either take action against what was a violation of the law, and the city, I believe the council fell short. Also, recently, I've been hearing reports of some commission member who verbally and almost physically assaulted a member of the community after a public meeting in this city hall. I talked with the people that were involved and I asked, why don't you make a report? And the comment I got was, we are scared because we're going to get retribution and we may get punished. There's a fear of taking action. Three is, and probably in my mind, the most important issue is that when I first joined council, I was approached by several employees who had concerns about leadership at the city. And they came to me and asked me if I could help. And I took some action. I contacted the city attorney. I also met with the former mayor. I also met with the city manager, former city manager, and the city attorney to discuss concerns. And basically what has come out of that in my experience is that there is not a culture of trust, and employees do not feel safe in making a report, and nor do our community members feel safe if they have a concern and they want to bring it up to have it addressed. That to me is imperative reasons for us to update our ethics policy. I also do want to share, and I debriefed the city manager on this conversation. I met with Scott. Let me get this information right here. I met with Scott Slager last week. Scott Slager is the State Historic Preservation Office. He's in the Cultural Resource Management and Planning Office. He is the Section 106 Cultural Resource Protection Manager. And I wanted to meet or talk with him to understand the exact process that AT&T is going through currently with the State Historic Preservation Office. And I connected with Scott Slager through another contact that I had at the office. And the interesting information that I received was that, and this was known to the city manager. I'm just explaining this because it was interesting information to me, is that as a result of the archaeological survey ordered by AT&T in 2023, the FCC requested that AT&T consult with SHPO and the tribes to complete a NHAPA Section 106 review. And the review is done by the tribes and by SHPO, and the review is meant to determine if a proposed project is the type of activity that has the potential to cause effects of historic properties. SHPO and the tribes determined, this was back in April of this year, that the project would have an adverse effect on the property. There was an email that was sent by SHPO and the tribes to a courtesy copy to the Impact 7G, which is the consultant for AT&T, to evaluate the findings. That process is still underway. As a matter of fact, that's what generated that request that we had at the workshop for us to consider putting the conduit underneath the steps. Again, the reason I'm bringing this up is one of the other things that the communication back to AT&T from SHPO included were questions regarding possible alternatives to the proposed project, including placing the equipment near the city's water reservoir or at another location, or if there were other alternative technologies available, that is cellular signal repeaters, et cetera. The timeline for completion of the review is TBD. So this is an open open review. And the reason I bring this up is I really think, and I mentioned it at the AT&T meeting when we had them on the call at our workshop, is I don't know what the probability of this application being denied or approved. It wasn't clear from my conversation with Mr. Slager. I think it's incumbent on the city council to really be proactive on this and begin looking at other alternatives. In the event that AT&T does not get their application approved, we need to have a plan B, plan C, plan D. I mean, that's good business and that's good government. I would really like to have us take a look at doing a telecommunications strategy committee and maybe even collaboration with our partners over in the Village of Douglas and the township. We have a lot of needs in the community and there's a lot of great ideas that were in the manager's report about companies that are approaching him that to me kind of seem like whack-a-mole sometimes. We're really not really clearly strategic in terms of how we're approaching the problem. And I think we can do a better job at it. So, thank you.
Holly. Wow. Well, I'm going to pick up on the ethics. So we do have an ethics policy. Our attorneys looked at it again last year. Actually, our mayor asked all of us to provide feedback. I think that was at a council workshop that we had. I don't know if anybody besides me did, but I actually did. And then we talked about it again on Wednesday, and I provided the same feedback I provided then. I think the attorneys are going to take another look to be sure we're current. A lot of what Mr. Gardner read to us is great stuff, but belongs not in an ethics policy, but within other policies. For example, sustainability, really important, but you would have a separate policy that's not, I mean, I guess you can say it's ethics. It would fall under the broader umbrella. But the one thing I really want to home in on is the fostering a culture of integrity and the sort of the integrity with staff. Because Mr. Gardner, you were the person who during, you were part of the initial vote and discussion on the Planning Commission on the moratorium for short-term rentals. So it was the first time it came up. And it was brought to us by city staff and the planning commissioner, Mans, and former Mayor Dean. And we talked in planning. It's like, how did this come about? Mans explained that it, came from staff with Scott, city attorney, and Steve. So we talked about it. City council unanimously voted, and you were on planning at that time. I'm sorry, planning at that time, of which you remember, voted unanimously to send it to city council. Went to city council the next workshop meeting, and you had changed your vote, which is completely your right to do. But in your council workshop comments, you said that you suspected something nefarious went on with the introduction of that. And I was sitting right about a chair behind Mr. Fox and toward the window and turned to the person next to me and said, did he just say nefarious? So I called you. Actually, I sent you an email and we talked on the phone. And I said, Russ, I just want to be sure you know that the word nefarious means criminal. And you said to me, yes, I chose that word intentionally. I make notes before I speak, and I chose that word intentionally. So in a public meeting, you accused our then planning director, our then mayor, our former city manager, and mayor and city attorney of criminal behavior. And I called you on that. And it's interesting because you've never thought that was a big deal. In fact, when we talked about it this winter again. And you said, I don't see why, Holly, you're the only person that's complained about that. I don't see why it's a big deal. Like ethics are only important, or ethical behavior. And so first of all, that by our code is not unethical, because you have the free speech, you have the First Amendment right to say whatever you want. As elected official, you can lie. All of us, we can lie, we can disparage staff. But I will tell you, when you talk about the importance of culture, but we'll call our staff criminals. And you know what? I actually was fine that you can call Scott whatever you want. You can call Steve Mans whatever you want. But that you would imply or insinuate that city staff was criminal. Zero evidence, none. And I just, so I just have to say, I am totally with you. I think ethics are like baseline critical for how organizations operate. But your hypocrisy is breathtaking on that one.
Okay. At this point, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Adjourned.